Now I turn it over to you, Kelly Koepke.
Thanks. Hi, everyone. It's lovely to see the usual suspects, but also some newbies here. Good to see you, Heather, and good to see you, Bernadette, and good to see you, Moira. And then we have our two ladies from Ghana, Juliet and Mary. Good to see them too. So, and Alex Anna is also a guest. So, and Maria, I see you got the link. I don't know if you got it from Jim or if you got it from me or how you got it. Whatever. Here we are. Great, and it is my pleasure to present how to put the pizzazz back in your business writing. This is, Bob, this will look familiar because it's a modification of what I gave 4 years ago as one of the first TAN education meetings. But my husband, who is a PowerPoint whiz, helped me make it pretty because I'm not about the pretty, I'm about the content, right? I'm about the words and getting the message across, not how it looks. I rely on other people to help me do that. And I'm glad that those people exist and are in my life because my life would be poorer if they were not. So let's get started. So I'm gonna press the magic button to share my screen. And please let me know that actually.
I'm going to interrupt you just for a second. Please, everyone, mute yourselves so that we don't interrupt Kelly by accident.
Okay, so everyone, just give me a thumbs up if you can see that. Can you see put the pizzazz back in your business writing? Great, good. That's what I want to hear. So, so this is a presentation, and it doesn't actually just refer to business writing, by the way. This is good for any kind of writing. Whether you want to write a letter to someone, whether you want to write a personal memoir, whether you want to write anything else. It doesn't just apply to business writing. Some of the examples in here are business focused, but these tips apply to all kinds of writing. So let's get started. So writing is messy, it's solitary, but it can definitely be rewarding. But like politics and sausage making, you probably don't want to see it being done because it is messy and it's solitary and it's tearing out your hair while you're doing it. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it because it is very rewarding. So the first tip, so there are 10 tips here. First tip is to use active tenses and avoid passive constructions. And what does that mean? When I was putting this together, I said there has to be a way that we can illustrate this really in a really fun kind of way, because active constructions add life and immediacy and are often shorter than passive constructions. And passive constructions tend to, but not always, rely on the verb to be or a helping verb like to have. And here is my favorite tip to try and figure out whether something is an active construction or a passive construction. And that is the zombie trick. Zombie trick. So if you can write and here's the zombie trick. If you can write a sentence and add the words by zombies at the end of the sentence, and it makes sense, it's passive. So when you say by zombies at the end of your sentence, and it makes sense, it's a passive sentence. And that means, here's an example. The town was attacked. Is this a passive sentence or not? You can add the words by zombies at the end. The town was attacked by zombies. This makes sense, right? This is a perfectly straightforward sentence. You understand what it means, but it's passive because you could put by zombies at the end and it made sense. If it doesn't make sense to add by zombies at the end, it's an active sentence, and that's what you want. You want the sentence not to make sense when you put zombies at the end. So zombies attacked the town by zombies doesn't make any sense, right? There's a redundancy, it's just weird. But zombies attacked the town, period, or full stop, if you prefer, is an active sentence because you can't use by zombies at the end. So that's the zombie trick. And I love the zombie trick because it works every single time. Every single time, without exception. If you can put by zombies at the end and it makes sense, it's passive. So basically, just don't do it, right? So that's the lesson about active tenses. bringing life. So use a straightforward active sentence structure, subject, verb, object. People read it very quickly. We're used to reading like this. So that generates some life in your sentence. And if you remember nothing else from today's presentation, remember this. Remember to use active constructions. Okay? Right. Tip number 2, know your audience. You have to know who the audience is for whatever it is you're writing, whether that's a newsletter to your clients, whether that's a letter to your employees or an email to your employees, whether that's a letter to your mother, telling her how much you enjoy her, whether it's a letter to Bernadette saying, Bernadette, that's a very cute haircut you've got there. Definitely gives you some pizzazz in your look there. But you have to know who you're talking to. And because you have to know who you're talking to, when you know who you're talking to, your client or customer will recognize that they are the ones who should be receiving this message, right? They will know that they are in the right place, that they've been given the right email, that they've gotten the right newsletter, because they can see themselves. So the flip side of that, knowing what's in it for your client and knowing that they are your audience, is to let them know what's in it for them. And you can do this by talking about a problem or issue of concern to them that piques their interest right away. So a really good example of this is to say you want to write a blog, and you want to write a blog about PPP loan forgiveness. That's a hot topic right now. How does that happen? If you have a PPP loan, how are you going to get that loan forgiven so you don't have to pay it back? So you should start out right away addressing the fact that this blog is going to small business owners, maybe large business owners too, but definitely business owners who need to know that they're looking for PPP loan forgiveness. That's what's in it for them. And you tell them that right away. So the flip side of knowing your audience is to also know your style. So if you tend to write in a more formal way, or you want a cheeky tone, or you want to be a little humorous, is that going to mesh with your audience? So ask yourself who your audience is, what's my style? If my style and the audience they butt heads, then there's going to be a disconnect, right? The audience isn't going to understand why you're talking to them in a very funny, irreverent kind of way if that's not who they are. So you don't see a lot of joking, informal language when you're reading something about finances, because finances for most people is not funny. Talking about money isn't funny. That doesn't mean you can't be funny when you're talking about money, but that's probably not the right tone for the audience that you're looking for. On the other hand, if you sell gardening supplies, if you're a restaurant, if you are a tech person like Fiona is, then maybe you want to be a little more cheeky or humorous, because tech can be frustrating, right, Fiona? And people get frustrated, but if you can lighten the mood a little bit when you're talking to them, they probably will appreciate that. So the last thing I want to say about knowing your audience is that there's definitely a formula when you're trying to talk to people, especially about in the what's in it for them phase. And that formula is problem, solution, what do you want me to do now? And that's a great formula for a blog. So if you're writing a blog to an audience, think about what's the problem and talk about the problem. What's the solution? And I have the solution, right? That's why you're writing the blog, is because I have the solution. And then what do you want them to do? Do you want them to call you to make an appointment? Do you want them to sign up for your newsletter? What do you want them to do? So give them something to do. And that part of that too is knowing your audience so that you can give them something that appeals to them. Okay, so tip number 3, avoid jargon. And I love this kid. I don't know who this kid is, but he's like, what? What are you saying? Jargon is all of the words that you use in your industry that no one else knows, right? There's jargon in every industry. There's jargon in my industry, in the writing industry. There's jargon in finance. There's lots of jargon in financial writing. There's lots of jargon in banking. There's lots of jargon in real estate. lots of jargon in tech. But unless you're writing for an audience of your peers who understands your jargon, don't use them. If you're writing for the general public, don't use that jargon because they don't know what you're talking about. And that is the quickest way to turn a reader off, is to use vocabulary that they don't understand. So be yourself and write in your own style. Again, if you're writing for your peers, use all the jargon you want. And that may be very comfortable for you because you're writing for your peers about something that you know a lot about. But if you're writing for the general public, look at all of the words and the vocabulary that you're using in whatever that email is, or that newsletter, or that blog post, and say, do I know what that means? And am I sure I know what that means? And here's a really easy tip to understand what a piece of jargon is and if someone would understand it. So this is my grandmother. This is my grandmother, Sylvia Weisberg. This photo was probably taken in the 30s, so she was in her 20s. And she was a really, really smart woman. And she took me to the library. She taught me to do crossword puzzles. I have her dictionary right behind me on her dictionary stand. So she loved words, right? But she is the perfect example of the grandmother test, or the grandma test. So the grandma test is this. If you can explain something to your grandma and she understands what you're talking about, you're golden, right? Don't use jargon with your grandma. You wouldn't use jargon with your grandmother to talk about something or explain something unless she was in your peer group, right? Unless she was in your industry. So if your grandmother sold real estate and you're a realtor, you can talk jargon all day long with your grandmother, but odds are your grandmother wasn't a realtor and you're talking about real estate. So you should be talking to her in vocabulary that she will understand. So if your grandmother could understand it, you're good. All right. Number 4, oh, okay. So this is a really great quote from a wonderful blog, Grammar Girl. And Young Fogarty is the creator of Grammar Girl. And I love this quote from her because it really talks about the trap that a lot of business people fall into, which is using $10 words, right? Using lots of jargon because they want to sound smart. They want to sound like they know what they're talking about. Instead, they wind up sounding like they're trying too hard. And again, those $10 words, that jargon is great if you're talking to your peers. But if you're not talking to your peers, cut those words out. Which is actually a great segue to number 4, which is cut it out. So what I'm talking about is cutting the word it out. So the word it is it's just insidious, right? It's the worst. It's so small and it's so tempting and tantalizing because we as writers, when we're writing something, we know what it means, but when you go back and read the piece again, nobody knows what it means. So editors are ruthless. They will circle it. They'll say, what does this refer to? Or they'll check what it refers to. Maybe they're right, maybe they're not. So just try not to use it at all, or if you have to use it sparingly. Because just because you know what it refers to doesn't mean anybody else knows. And here's a great example. And I picked this like right out of the newspaper back 4 years ago when I was creating this presentation the first time. Although the company made a profit, it made poor use of it. So you've got 2 it's there, which is just like nails on the chalkboard for me. So you've got 2 it's. You could posit what the it's belong to, but this is lazy writing. This is writing that didn't have an editor come back and say, what are you talking about? Be clearer, you know, use a better language. And so I'm going to show you 3 ways to fix this sentence. The first fix is to replace it, the word it, with a noun. Although the company made a profit, it made poor use of the money. So you understand what the it is in this sentence, right? It's the company made poor use of the money. The second way to fix this is to combine the two sentence parts into a single statement. The company made a profit, but made poor use of it. So you've put up a contrast there, and you know what the it refers to in this case as well. And there's a third way, and that's to use which or that, and say the company made a profit of which it made poor use. But yuck, who wants that? That just sounds awful and awkward and strained, and nobody wants to use that. So in the first fix, you can definitely understand what from context what the it refers to. Second with number 2, but third is grammatically correct, but just awkward. So we don't talk like this. We don't say the company made a profit of which it made poor use, right? That's formal writing, but that's not how we talk. So what we want to be in our writing always is natural and fluid, and so we should write like we talk, and we'll get to a tip about that in just a second. So here's another fun quote. I know you believe you understand what you think I said, but I am not sure you realize that what you heard is not what I meant. So clear as mud, right? But this is about, you know, finding clarity. And it often, the word it often prevents clarity. Okay, number 5. So what's the call to action? I talked a little bit about call to action at the beginning. What's in it for your customer when you're writing a blog about problem, solution, call to action? What's the call to action? Adding a call to action to anything is a good idea because it's asking, what do you want the reader to do now? Do you want them to share this? Do you want them to sign up for a newsletter? Do you want them to visit your Facebook page? Do you want them to buy something? So these are all calls to action. Click here, contact us, learn more. Your call to action could also be a question. It could be, are you ready to commit? Are you ready to buy? Or it could be something that invites comment. What are your experiences with the topic that we're talking about today? What are your experiences with boring writing? What made it boring? Or what made a piece of writing really exciting? So that would be a call to action and a way to spark a conversation, because that's what you want to do. You want to engage people and bring them into your conversation. All right, number 6, we are halfway through. So 6 is mean what you say and say what you mean, which sounds easier than it is. And I love this quote from Alice in Wonderland, Alice's Adventures in Wonderland from Lewis Carroll. Then you should say what you mean, the March Hare went on. I do, Alice hastily replied. At least I mean what I say. That's the same thing, you know. Not the same thing a bit, said the Hatter. Why, you might as well just as well say that I eat what I see is the same thing as I see what I eat is the same thing as I eat what I see. And those are not the same thing. So mean what you say what you mean. And there's another tip here as well for doing that. And that is the KISS rule. Keep it simple, stupid. So this also goes back to the grandmother test, right? If it doesn't matter how complex the thing is you want to say and how complicated the idea you want to express, every complicated idea can be broken down into a simpler statement. Again, you may have to pull it apart. You may have to make the words you use simpler and shorter and your sentences simpler and shorter, but every idea can be made simpler and explained in a different way. And if you can do that, you can achieve clarity in your writing and you can engage more people. So number 7 is let go of perfection. And what that means is done is better than perfect, right? Don't agonize over spelling or grammar or punctuation. Just get the idea out there, because you can always go back and fix the stuff that needs fixing, or hire somebody to fix the stuff that needs fixing for you. People like me, people who look at ideas and words all day say, how can we make this easier to understand? How can we fix the grammar? How can we fix the spelling? Editors are your friends and friends are your friends. And if friends need to look at stuff before you put it out there, then make use of them, because that is how you let go of perfection. And I like this quote. I don't know if it's from Winston Churchill or not. Things on the internet can be suspect, but the maxim, nothing but perfection, can be spell paralysis, right? So if perfection is stopping you from writing anything, then you could also take a cue from someone who is misquoted, which is to be less inhibited when writing, and then return the piece and view it with a critical eye later, which a writer named Paul DeVries summed up here: write drunk, edit sober. So what you want to do is just lose your inhibitions when you write, right? So just write down the thought, move on to the next thought, keep writing the thoughts. And when you're done, put it away for a bit and then come back and then go, good Lord, what was I thinking? And fill in the gaps, right? And reorganize things and make things better. This quote, write drunk, edit sober, was attributed to Ernest Hemingway, but he did not actually say that. He never actually wrote drunk. He might have edited drunk, but he never wrote drunk. But so so I did some research. So a writer named Paul DeVries actually said this. But it's a great maxim, and Heather knows this too. Write drunk, edit sober, right? Just get the ideas out, just spew and get them out, and then come back later. Because you can always fix it, right? But you can't fix what you haven't done. So get it done. All right, tip number 8, practice short and be flexible. And what this means is that not every piece of writing needs to be a novel. Not every blog post needs to be 1,000 words. Not every social media post needs to be longer than a sentence or a line or a paragraph or just a comment, right? Things don't have to be as long or complicated as you want to make them. And so this maxim then comes into play. Why use 2 words when you could use 1? And this is why editors make a living. They hack and they slash your writing. And this is sort of the flip side of the letting go of perfection, right? You want to dump it all in your first draft and then go back with your red pen or your delete key or your, cut and paste and cut them all out, right? Cut out all of the extra stuff because it's not necessary. So again, suspect quote, but I like it. The most valuable of talents is that of never using 2 words when 1 will do. So that in itself could have used some editing. That's a really long quote. And you could have just said, never use 2 words when 1 will do. But you know what? The founding fathers like to write, so we have that. All right, so number 9, we are almost finished. Number 9, one of the most underrated ways of adding some life to your business writing is to be inspired by other people, is to look at other people's writing, look at magazines, look at newsletters, look at blogs, look at TV, look at social media, and look at something that could use your perspective when you're writing. The old adage, there's nothing new under the sun, is definitely true, but your perspective is new. And what you have to say, the examples you might give to illustrate a point will be new, right? Because they're new to you and they come from you. So people say there aren't enough good ideas, but you know what? If you don't have ideas, then you're not paying attention. So that's my take on that. Okay, last one, number 10. The number 10 way to add pizzazz to your writing is to use templates. Templates exist to make your life easier. Create them or find them and use them, because templates provide you structure that allows you to be creative. Believe it or not, structure actually can enhance and encourage creativity, because things need to fit a recipe or a model. And then, I didn't mean to go that because there's a bonus. And then once you have the formula down, you can break the rules, right? Once you understand the rules of writing and the rules of grammar and what everybody thinks is correct about writing, then you can have fun. You can play with things. You can make up your own structures. You can modify things to fit a certain circumstance. You can be cheeky and funny. But until you have those good grammar rules down and good rules for what a blog post should be and what a newsletter should be and what a social media post should be, you can't break them, right? Because you don't understand why you're breaking them and why it's important to break them in that case. So once you know the rules, you can break them. But if you don't know the rules, you don't know which ones are really, really important. So that's number 10. And now I already teased you, you're getting a bonus. Here's number 11. Number 11 is if creating more engaging content is a priority, then become a better writer or hire a professional. Oops, sorry. And that's the last one. And this is a favorite GIF of mine from Jim Carrey, just typing away. This is what I hope you imagine that I do all day long, just hardworking. And that's it. So I am going to stop sharing this now and come back to the group. And I would love to entertain questions if anybody has them.
What is the proper length of the things that you're talking about, like blogs, newsletters, so on? How do you know how long to make them?
You can make them as long as you want, Steve, or as short as you want. There are no hard and fast rules unless you are looking to do a specific thing with the blog. If you are looking to rank highly on search engines, then you want it to be a certain length. And that length changes all the time because of Google and their algorithm. So right now, word on the street has it that blogs should be between 500 and 1,000 words. Will that be the same tomorrow? I don't know. It used to be only 350 words. And before that, it was 1,200 words. So, you know, it's really hard to say. My feeling and my expert opinion, because I've been doing this for 20 years, is that your blog should be as long as it needs to be to make your point. So if you can make your point in 500 words, great. If it takes you 1,000 words, fabulous. If you need 2,000 words, you probably have 2 blogs there, right? Because you've got too many ideas competing with one another. So does that answer your question? I sound like an attorney, right? With it depends.
Isn't that what makes a great writer too? I mean,
I mean, one of my favorite books in the world is, what's it called? It's Charing Cross Road. Is it 24 Charing Cross Road? I'm looking it up. 84 Charing Cross Road. It's this big. It's tiny. You could read it in 2 hours. By contrast, I also love books that are 600 or 800 pages long, right? It took the writer of Charing Cross Road, 150 pages to make her point. I think it's a woman, to make her point. But it took another writer 800 pages to make his or her point. So write as long as you need to make your point. Hey, Heather.
Hey, I want to know about the zombie story. I want to know, where did you find it? I mean, that's like the amazing trick.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I think I found it on Grammar Girl. Grammar Girl is a wonderful, wonderful website that has the answers to almost any grammar question you might have. I go there. I just like the site, frankly. She has some great quotes. She has great examples, like the zombie thing. I'm pretty sure that came from Grammar Girl.
Kelly, we're so inundated with information. When I think about reading a 500 word or 1,000 word anything anymore, it's like, I've kind of had it.
I understand.
Because we get so much information and we can't possibly, that's all we'd be doing all day long.
Well, yeah, you're right. That's true. And again, that 500 to 1,000 word blog post or essay or something, odds are the writer's looking for search engine optimization for that content, so that when you look for something and you're really looking for something, right, you need to know something, you're willing to read 500 to 1,000 words, right, when you're looking for information. But just an idle blog post, you may not do that. So again, it's about knowing your audience and what they're looking for at the time. You know, I would never write a newsletter that was more than about 250 words long. And I would break it up. I break the chunks of content, and I would tease something longer that would have a link that would go outside, right? So that you can read the newsletter in just 30 seconds, right? And go, oh, I'm going to keep this because it's got something longer attached to it, and I'll read that later. And then when you can go back and read it later. But yeah, you're right. Our attention, we have the attention spans of gnats these days, or fruit flies. They live even less time than that. And that's why a lot of writing for the web is chunked into content, right? That's got images in between, so that while we're reading, we're distracted into thinking we're not reading anymore.
And what about constant contact? Is that still effective?
Oh, I mean, that's just an email program. Yeah. Constant Contact, MailChimp, Aweber, all of those email management programs are great because they come often with templates ready-made, templates that show you how much space you have and how much you can work with and how much is sort of ideal, and you should use them because they're there and you should use them. It's like a recipe for cooking. Until we understand the chemistry of cooking and how flavors work together, we rely on recipes, right? But once we've become a better cook, we don't need the recipe anymore because we understand how things work together. Writing's the same way. You do it long enough and you understand how everything works, and so you don't need the template anymore. The template becomes internalized, just like a cooking recipe would become internalized.
Kelly, I have a best practices question for you. So I write for multiple clients as you do, and they're very, very different as far as personality and tone and those kinds of things. What do you do to kind of get into the mindset and sometimes do the radical switches that you might have between your different clients? Like,
and you know what? I love that question, Diane. I love being
Dust yourself off, for God's sake.
I love
Go look in the mirror in the bathroom. No, I mean, seriously.
Bernadette,
we can hear
Bernadette, could you please mute yourself?
Oh, I didn't realize I was not.
What did you say that you love, Kelly? I'm sorry. Could you start over?
being other people. If I hadn't been a writer, maybe I'd have been an actress, because I love taking on other people's personalities. I love trying to figure out how would they talk, right? I love writing blog posts for Craig Dill, who is on this call right now, even though you can't see him, because Craig has a very specific way of talking that is a lot of fun to imitate. So, so when I get to write stuff for Craig, it's really fun. By contrast, I also have clients who are more formal, or they're writing things for a more formal audience, which is okay too, right? It's just a different way of thinking and being, and it's fun. I like it. It's fun. But I'm also, most writers are listeners first, right? We observe, we catch things that people say, we understand tone, we see vocabulary, and we make notes of that. And that's why we can say, well, Steve Edkin would never say something like that, but Craig would.
I would. So,
love that comparison of comparing them to characters.
I had lunch with a banker this week who told me to send him some content for a newsletter that he was going to start sending out, a newsletter. So, very sharp guy, commercial lending officer, VP at the bank. I got his newsletter today, and it included a PowerPoint that I sent him. And I think that it can be improved upon the newsletter by you. So
Great.
if we could role play for a moment how this should go in terms of you being me and I being the banker. Why don't you say to me what you would say to the banker about having him use your services?
Well, I would want a really warm referral, Steve. And I'd want you to say why you thought I was needed by the banker. And then I could say, I would ask all of the questions that I would normally ask anybody, like, who's your audience? What do you think they're looking for from you? What's their knowledge level in finance? Are they like all MBAs, CEOs, CFOs, or are they my grandma, right? And so what kinds of vocabulary you're using, what subjects you're talking about? Are you talking about things that are just way over their head and comfort level? Or are you talking about the things that they care about? And you can make someone care about a topic that they don't understand by showing them how it impacts them, right?
I don't want to say your newsletter is junk. You need Kelly.
Actually, that sounds exactly like what you should say.
I need to be able to get him to work with you without telling him how terrible it is now.
Well, then, Steve, I would find 4 reasons why it's terrible and just say, hey, I'm lost in this section. I don't get it because I don't understand your jargon. Or I would say, you know what, I don't understand what you're saying here, and not because of the jargon, but just because it's a complicated issue and I don't understand how you've explained this. And then you could say, here's what I took away from this other section. Is that what you meant? Because I'm not clear. Go, think about the tips that I've given and say, Steve, I'm Steve, I'm your grandmother, and I don't get it. And I think if I don't get it, a lot of other people don't get it.
Is it best to set up like an email introduction to you with him, or a 3-way phone call? What would be the best way to get you guys together?
That really depends on how he wants to be communicated with. If email's best for him, or a text, or a meeting, or however you want to do it.
Okay, I'll get this taken care of tomorrow.
Great, thanks. Other questions? All right, I guess we're done then.
Well, do we want to, I wanted to add something, just a point of interest. I am in a book club, and I actually listen to the books that I read for that club. Right now I'm listening to The Splendid and the Vile about Winston Churchill. It is awesome. And
Eric Larson, 2 thumbs up on Eric Larson.
The audiobook is really awesome. It's 18 hours long, which I thought was long. And then I remembered a story from my teenage years where I think I mentioned to my father that I had a summer that I didn't have much planned. And he looked at me and he said, well, why don't you read War and Peace then? And I looked it up. It is 66 hours long in the audiobook version. So that's a great illustration of, I thought 18 hours was long, but 66 hours, and a lot of people have read War and Peace. So it's all about what your level of interest is and what you want to get out of it.
War and Peace is incredibly engaging.
It is.
As a piece of writing. It is a soap opera. It's a soap opera about the royalty of Russia before the revolution. And it is, I mean, seriously, it is riveting.
I actually got that from the samples of the book that I listened to. So I highly recommend that we all think about what it is in terms of what Kelly was saying. our audience, who it is we're trying to reach. Diana brings up that great point about we're inundated with information, but some of our audience is actually frustrated by those little tiny sound bites that we see in things. I happen to like to read longer pieces because I want more content. I am a learner by nature. I am hungry for information. So it is frustrating to me that this has become the norm. However, if you're just sending out something to get people's attention quick, that's for a different purpose. And you don't want to make that very long because people, it has to catch their attention right like that. And then
Absolutely. I mean, that's why you're taught in school that the most important thing you have to say should be in the first paragraph of anything, right? And then the rest is just explanation. And that's a great illustration as to why. Bob, you had a question.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, Anne, tell me again the name of the book, the Churchill book.
Oh, The Splendid and the Vile. And you will not be able to put it down if you read it in this form, or stop listening if you read it in the audio form. It is awesome. And the reader on Audible is really, really good. Really good.
Okay, one more time. I'm sorry. The Splendid what?
The Splendid and the Vile.
And the Vile.
V-I-L-E. By Eric Larson. And he's an amazing writer. And for you history buffs out there, it is 100% nonfiction, which you will be like stupefied as you listen. As it has amazing details about the garish dressing gown that Churchill wore every night, or garish is a judgment call on my part, but you know, colorful, and his taking baths, and yeah, all those really juicy details that actually go quite well with War and Peace, I think.
Yes. So Eric Larson is probably best known for having written The Devil in the White City, which is about a serial killer operating in Chicago at the same time as the 1893 World's Fair. And it's riveting. I think that's still his best, is The Devil in the White City. But everything he's written since then combines historical fiction with a story that is just, you can't put it down. He's amazing at what he does. I don't really
like. The other one is Paris.
Pardon?
Paris is fabulous that he wrote as well.
He wrote that too. Okay, yeah. Paris. Well, in The Splendid and the Vile is from all the diaries of people at that time. And it was amazing to me. I started to think about, I need to start writing a diary, because oh my God, all of the information that people put down in their journals, diaries about their daily life was fascinating. Like, who's doing that for our time? We're inundated with this, is what we're inundated with, instead of meaty stuff. Anyway, that's my editorial.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions? Diana, I thought you had your hand up again. No, Diana. She's right above the screen.
Well, does anybody, if you're still here, would you like to break out into 4x rooms so that you can connect with some people and make an arrangement, or are we ready to move on?
I've got to go, but good job, Kelly. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yay! Thank you, Kelly. Yes.
Thank you all for being here, and for and if you like the design of the PowerPoint, thank my husband, because I was just going to have it up on a white screen. He's like, "Oh no, we're going to make this look good," and he just sort of took over, and I'm like, "Yay!" I'm not about the pretty. I'm about communicating content, right? Communicating messages and words, and that's not, that's making stuff look good is not my forte.
And yet you have someone matched up with you that can take that over. Isn't that awesome? The complementary thing, right?
Exactly.
All right.
I think
so
I need a husband.
Go ahead.
I think I need a husband.
Some of us say we need wives.
Yeah. All right, so it looks like everybody's sort of bailing out. So again, thank you everyone so much. If anybody would like a copy of the PowerPoint, I'm happy to share it.
Yes,
So
please
Yes.
do.
let me know.
Please share it.
And hopefully we'll get this recording up on the TAN website soon.
It has definitely been recorded.
Great, so that people who were not able to attend can see it live and in person.
Great.
Yes, yes, it was very good, very succinct and on the mark, and great questions. And thank you everybody for your participation. And have a great afternoon or evening. Bye.